decides that it's just not going to stream this show, but the last show was just fine. So apologize for that. We seem to be back, maybe not looking terrible, not looking great either. So don't know. Let's just run with it and see how it goes, Andrew. How about that?
That's the best we can hope for.
I'll
right?
do my best. If I have to drop like something, I'll do it.
Just put some coffee on there. The caffeine helps, I hear.
The caffeine helps, I hear. No, it's still a little stuttery, so I will be working back here. So I'm going to turn my video off, but please continue.
Okay, so Evan, please, by all means.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So my name is Evan Mahoney. I'm a software maintenance engineer on the support team here at Red Hat, and I've been working with OpenShift for the last 2.5 years. And prior to that, I specialized in virtualization technologies, namely KVM, libvirt, QEMU.
It's all near and dear to my heart. I focus on a lot of those same technologies, and you and I actually recently had a conversation in email around etcd performance tuning and other metrics and stuff like that. So I think we align pretty well here by accident. So Luke, please.
So yeah, my name is Luke Stanton. I am privileged to work with Evan and the many other awesome engineers on the support team. I'm also a software maintenance engineer, and I've been at Red Hat for just over 2.5 years. So really enjoyed every minute of it. I'm actually from a .NET C# programming background, so I kind of dove into the deep end with Linux when I took this job, but have loved it. Really enjoyed it a lot.
You let that cat out of the bag. Now I'm going to start asking you about all the random .NET and other Windows centric things that I've got.
Yeah, I'm a little rusty on all that now, so but
that's okay. We can brush that rust off. We'll figure it out. So both of you guys mentioned that you're software maintenance engineers and you're in support, right? CEE. So what does that actually mean? And this is I'm curious because I don't have a lot of opportunity to interact with you or your team and kind of how all of that works together from a holistic approach to, and I strongly suspect this is not just OpenShift, but Red Hat support as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure, I can touch that. So the role of a software maintenance engineer is to bridge the gap somewhere between support and engineering. Engineering generally will make the code changes, but sometimes customers would like fixes outside of the normal cadence that we ship code changes. So we are here to fill that gap.
Got it.
Across all of our portfolio, that's across support, whether it's RHEL, CoreOS, or RCOS, or OpenShift, or really any of our product stacks.
Got it. So essentially, as customers or even us internal folks, as we find issues that you all are solving, it's creating patches, fixing those bugs in real time, and then that eventually makes it back into the product through RFEs, BZs, etc.
Yep, exactly.
All right. So I see a couple of people. I see JP Dade saying that Luke has helped him out a number of times. So you've been on the show for all of 5 minutes, brand new stream, and you've already got a fan.
See, look, that's all it took.
All who says support isn't appreciated? So everything good, Chris?
So I've identified the problem. The problem is that I would have to restart the stream to fix it. It is an audio related streaming issue. So I mean, I'm okay with it. If it gets really choppy, we can cut it and start over again. So
hey, I work for you. I'm happy if you're happy.
I'm just a producer here, buddy. You run you're the big cheese. Remember?
All right. So again, remember that for those in our audience, remember that this is based on you all. Again, it's an office hours, which means that we're interested in your questions, whether they are product related, right? Hey, how does this work? Or what does this mean? Whether it's hopefully you have no support issues, everything is working smoothly and exactly as it is. But we will certainly, if you have something that's broken, try and help with that as much as possible. In the absence of that type of content, in other words, if all of your questions are answered, I think there's a couple of things that we can certainly talk about to help drive that conversation. I want this to be, and this hour, this show is meant to be kind of a organic and natural conversation between all of us, and that includes our audience. So please feel free to contribute as needed. I just saw
We
a
got
bunch of text pop
quite the
in.
question just pop in. Yes. You want to read that? I'll read it. You can answer it. How about that? When I do bare metal UPI with VMware VMs, I run the HA proxy load balancer on a separate machine that is connected to an internal network that OpenShift uses. It is also connected to a network that can provide static public IPs assigned to me by the ISP. That way, external DNS can be used to point to the HA proxy server. That allows my OCP environment to be accessed publicly. I've been watching a few videos on VMware IPI approach, and I am not sure how to achieve the same thing with the two different versions, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yeah, so a little bit of background here. So with the on-premises IPI solutions, so Red Hat virtualization, OpenStack, vSphere, and in the future, bare metal IPI. The way that we implement the load balancing and DNS is different. So if you look at UPI, right, the prerequisites from a DNS and load balancing standpoint are you have to have some external load balancer, and you have to configure an API endpoint that points to the control plane nodes on port something that I can't remember, 20 something, 2000 something. And you have to point the apps or the ingress endpoint at the worker nodes on ports 80 and 443. So my ingress IP address is .10. Whenever somebody looks up, test.apps.cluster name, it goes to the load balancer. The load balancer then looks at the nodes, right, and it will load balance across the nodes that have a router instance for me automatically. Same thing with the API. Basically, it will round robin or whatever the load balancing algorithm is across the control plane nodes to deliver those API messages. So with IPI, that changed. Right, we removed the dependency or the requirement for an external load balancer, and we removed a lot of the old DNS entry requirements. So you no longer have to have external DNS entries for the hosts. You no longer have to have external DNS SRV records for etcd, which is actually an unrelated change, by the way. We can talk about that. And there's a couple of other things that have changed. And the way that we did this was by implementing a HA proxy plus, so for the control plane, HA proxy plus keep alive D solution for the API, and keep alive D to manage that virtual IP address for the apps. So the way, and if I'm understanding the question correctly, is previously you would have external access that comes and hits the load balancer on a public IP, and then an internal IP, so different network interfaces, different IP addresses, would then talk to the cluster, whether I was talking about apps, whether I was talking about the API ingress point. So currently with IPI, we rely on Keep Alive D, which is VRRP, so Virtual Routing Something Protocol.
I forget what it means. Those networking days are long past my brain cells. Yeah.
So it relies on VRRP, which relies on multicast, which means that the ingress and API IP addresses must be on the same subnet as the interface, the IP address that those nodes are using. So you would no longer be able to have that external or that load balancer be on exposing a different IP address or a different subnet, I should say, than what the nodes are sitting on, from my understanding. So how can you work around this, or how can we continue to make that work? So I've had some conversations with some of our partners. So for example, F5 was the one that I most recently had a conversation with. And you can deploy their certified operator, which will integrate with and manage an F5 big IP instance to act as those API endpoints, in particular for ingress. So what does this actually look like? Basically, we're not touching the default apps, right, ingress endpoint. It remains exactly the same inside of the OpenShift cluster. The F5 solution is deployed alongside of that. And you have a different domain name. So maybe it's, apps.f5.clustername. Or whatever that happens to be. And that's where those public or those routes that are managed by the F5 would be exposed through that way. So I'm working with them. I actually now have a virtual appliance that I can test with. Thank you to the F5 guys on our alliances team. So I'm hoping to have some additional information, additional collateral available with that, and working on co-publishing some things with them on making that simpler to use and understand. But at the end of the day, and Luke and Evan, please speak up, and I'll hush in just a moment so that you can add on anything that you have to say. At the end of the day, to my knowledge, it is not possible to have with the IPI load balancer it having a different subnet or using a different externally facing IP address or subnet. IP address it is different, but subnet for those IPs.
Will F5 be the only option in the short term? I don't think so. You can do the same things with any of those proxies.
Yeah, pretty
right?
much any of them. So Citrix, I know, has a certified operator as well. I believe Avi has an operator. I don't think it's certified at this point. HA Proxy, I believe, has an operator that may be certified. Nginx, which F5 and Nginx are the same company, right? So they have a certified operator as well. So I know there's a bunch of different options that are out there, and they can or they should all be able to work roughly the same. The difference is the integration point. So if they have that certified operator, usually that means that they are also managing some sort of CRD. So I can create an internal, right? I can create that object inside of OpenShift that says expose this route, and it will talk to whatever that hardware is on the other end and say, you now own this route. Here's the load balancing algorithm. Here's the endpoints, right? Go.
Yeah. Other folks?
Yeah, that was a great description of it. That was so just to clarify, the API server is going to be listening on 6443, and the machine config operator is going to be listening on 22623, I believe. Something like that.
That's impressive. You even remember. They run on ports in my land. So, it's great to see us doing a video on this, Dean Peterson mentions, but the video is choppy as all get out, and it really irritates me, Andrew. And I know how to fix it, and I see you giggling, kind of. So, can we do another reset, or are we just afraid of losing the audience at this point?
I have no preference whatsoever.
I mean, if you're okay with having a choppy video and the audio being fine, then we can continue on.
So at this point, it's just my lovely face. I apologize to our audience. So if you all, and please speak up in the comments, etc., or in the chats, if you all are okay with a little bit of choppiness for just our talking heads, I'm okay with it. If we want to restart it,
if it's driving people nuts, I want to fix it. So that's just what I'm going after here, folks. Just trying to make people happy. So there's nothing in the chat. Of course, there is a lag on the lag, of course, now. So we'll see comments here in a minute. But yeah, I'm cool with going forward if you are. So let's just push.
All right. So kind of digging through the chat here. Christian, I think he was asking Dean Peterson how external IPs are set up. So I'm going to ignore his question.
Okay.
And trust that he'll ask it again if I'm misinterpreting.
JP Date is good. Dean Peterson, thanks for video reuse. Fixing the video would be good. I agree, but this is our okay. Christian says reset. All right, so we'll be right back, folks. My apologies again. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, this is going so awkwardly.